Yes, you watching this video needs to give the Denver Nuggets more respect. They are a top 3 team in the league, and just one calendar year ago were the defending champions and favorites to repeat. Nikola Jokic is the best human at the game of basketball currently, and Jamal Murray is actually healthy. The one team that was built to beat the Nuggets just got dismantled due to a trade, and this team looks like they have a great shot at taking the West and maybe even winning the title, and let me explain more why. But firstly, I did say that the Nuggets are a top 3 team in the league, so who are the top teams? The Boston Celtics are in a different league than the rest. A 64-win defending champion, adding Lonnie Walker is just insane. But in the second tier, there is the Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder, and New York Knicks, with the Mavs being on the edge of that tier and the tier below them with teams like Milwaukee, Philly, Minnesota, and Memphis. At worst, Denver ranks at 4, and they could even be as good as the second best team in the league. And I think we forgot just how good they were last season. Going into the regular season, the Nuggets were the favorites to repeat, and even going into the playoffs, despite getting the 2 seed, they were the favorites to make it out of the West. The same people doubting the Nuggets right now were expecting them to win the title less than half a season ago. Now, what happened in last year's playoffs? In the first round, they swept the Lakers. Yes, some people might discredit this series due to insulting the Lakers or about how bad Darvin Ham was. He was really one of the worst coaches in the league, but sweeping a team nonetheless is very impressive, especially considering that they have 2 top 12 players in LeBron and AD, and 12 really is an understatement. They could even be better, and especially with how much star power matters when the playoffs actually occur. And in the second round, we forgot how close the Nuggets were, despite Jamal Murray's injury, which left him a shell of himself. Murray, who is one of the most notable playoff risers of the last half-decade, dealt with ankle, calf, and elbow issues that started in the end of the regular season. In 2019, Murray went against Dame and CJ and forced them to 7 in the second round, though inefficiently, averaging 21.3 points on 42.5% from the field. In the bubble, Murray infamously went toe-to-toe with Donovan Mitchell, with them both scoring 50 in the game, and he ended the playoffs averaging 26.5 on 50.5% field goal percentage. In the 2023 title run, his first playoffs after the ACL injury, Murray averaged 26.1 points on 47.3% from the field. Last playoffs, 20.6 points on 40.2%, both playoff career lows. Even despite that injury, they led the second round series 3-2 after 3 consecutive wins and were even ahead by 20 in Game 7 before a historically bad choke, but only lost by 8 points, and they were within 3 with less than 5 minutes left. Denver had some moments where it just felt like even though they weren't playing great and Minnesota should be beating them, they were still bound to win it, like Jamal Murray's half-court buzzer beater to erase Minnesota's momentum in Denver's eventual Game 4 victory. Oh yeah, that team that Denver came oh so close to beating, they just blew up their core. Karl Anthony Towns has been dealt to the Knicks for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo, an absolutely terrible move. The Towns-Gobert pairing combined with the amount of lengthy POA defenders was a perfect match for Jokic and Murray, but they just took part of that away. Cat played some great defense on Jokic in that playoff series, and they do not win without him. Yes, Naz Reid still gives them some flexibility, but going from Towns and Gobert to Gobert and Randle, that's just disgusting. And though Randle will improve defensively with Gobert, it really doesn't make sense to trade Cat. The duo had actually worked and they had their best season in decades, but the team that was perfectly built to beat Denver has just been changed massively. By the way, Minnesota's biggest offensive flaw of not having a great playmaker was not solved. Unless you expect rookie Rob Dillingham, who comes off the bench, to have that big of an impact, yeah, Minnesota might be cooked. Last year, just 9 5-man lineups had a plus-minus of over 100. Only one lineup was over 200. The Nuggets were at plus 282. In the 22-23 season, Denver also had the top 5-man lineup, again at plus 201, while nobody was even at plus 150. But that lineup last season was the best lineup in plus-minus since 2016, when the Thunder nearly hit plus 300. That was 8 seasons ago. Oh, but Kentavious Caldwell-Pope left, so why don't you do their 4-man lineup? It doesn't change anything. Gordon, Jokic, Murray, Porter was the second highest lineup that didn't involve KCP at plus 311, only 3 points behind Milwaukee despite playing 54 less minutes. Even when shortening it to 3-man lineups, Jokic, Murray, Porter is the highest non-KCP lineup at plus 416, and Jokic and MPJ is the highest non-KCP 2-man lineup. This team dominated last season, and their 4-man core is arguably the best in the league, really only competing with the Celtics. But this offseason has generated some headlines, so how will that impact next season? Like previously mentioned, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope left in free agency to the Orlando Magic. a huge loss as he slotted in as a 3-and-D wing that shot 41.5% from 3 over the last 2 seasons in the regular season. But when looking more into his playoff stats, this may not be as big offensively as some may think. In the 2023 title run, KCP averaged 10.6 points in the playoffs, but only shot 38% from 3, and had a negative 1.4 box plus minus, and last year was even worse, averaging 8.1 points and shot below 40% from the field and 32.7% from 3, going from above 60% true shooting in the regular season to 53.4%. His PER dropped by 8.5, generated just 0.1 offensive win shares, and a negative 3.1 offensive box plus minus, the only player in the negatives out of all of the Nuggets starters. Now, losing him defensively will suck, but that was never particularly a strength of the Nuggets, finishing 15th in defensive rating during their title season and tied for 8th last year. A slight regression will hurt, but won't really eliminate them from title hopes. But who will replace him is an important question, and no, it is not Russell Westbrook. A lot of this season depends on Christian Braun's performance, and though if he doesn't live up to the expectations, the Nuggets still can succeed, but it's definitely going to be a lot tougher. He's expected to be the starting shooting guard this season and did start the preseason opener against the Lakers, and he definitely has the potential to fill that role. Brown shot 38.4% from 3 on 2 attempts a game last season. Not great, but threes were a third of all of his attempts, so in a bigger role we can expect more shots, and on the other side of the ball is where Brown thrives. In his own words, he got into the rotation his rookie season because of defense, and though he started out slow last year, he picked up his defense as the season went on, and even held Ant to just 4 for 12 when defended by Brown in the second round. In just his third season, it wouldn't be that crazy to expect him to take a leap, and though he doesn't need to be KCP, we can expect him to help fill that role. Something that might also be mentioned is the injury of Jaron Holmes, 2024 A-10 Player of the Year, who was slated to be Jokic's backup as a rookie, but the Nuggets hope the addition of Dario Saric, a floor-spacing big who averaged 8 and 4 in 17 minutes for Golden State last year, and the return of DeAndre Jordan, a 36-year-old center well past his prime who averaged 5 and 5 in 13 minutes over the last 2 seasons, but did miss over half the games, and Zeke Naji, a 23-year-old who was drafted in the first round in 2020 but has continually lost minutes over the last 2 seasons, helps. The backup center rotation is a huge problem, but Jokic is an Iron Man. He missed just 3 games last season and was in the top 10 of minutes played. But in that 2023 year, there wasn't a backup center better than what they have currently, the closest to it being Jeff Green, who played 98% of his playoff minutes at power forward. But the only other big move was Russell Westbrook getting added to the Nuggets, and it is a huge replacement for the loss of Bruce Brown. He was an energy guy off the bench during the championship run, a role that was quietly very missed for Denver last season. But during this chapter of Russ's career, that seems exactly like what he can be now, while being an additional playmaker. The biggest concern is making sure that he plays the right role. We know that he succeeds when the ball is in his hands and is a negative 3-point shooter, so a lot of pressure falls on Coach Mike Malone to use Westbrook right. Now, when talking about their competition, this team has a solid chance to make it out of the West, as this conference is extremely deep, but doesn't really have a super team. My Western tiers are currently the Nuggets and Thunder at the top, with the Mavericks being on the border, with the Grizzlies and Wolves being in the second tiers, and Pelicans, Rockets, Lakers, and Suns fighting for the last playoff spot. With Denver still at the top, there hasn't been enough coverage of a team this good. Let's give the Nuggets their respect as actual title contenders.